welcome to That One Podcast.
Bienvenidos a That's Uno Podcast.
Yo, I was couldn't figure out how to say that.
I couldn't remember.
I don't know either. I started to say aquí, but that's not it at all.
Not at all.
¿Qué? No, that's what.
No.
Shit. You know, we'll figure it out by the next podcast because it might take that long. So,
then maybe we'll get it right if we remember.
No, we're not going to get it right at all. So, but yeah, welcome to That One Podcast, everybody. If you couldn't tell, that was my main man, Shiz, also known as Shizzle.
You might remember me. I know I've been away for a while.
He is corporeal now, and he's not in ghost form. So there you go. He's here to
touch me,
pleasure your earlobes. Oh, so, yeah. No, I don't like pleasuring my earlobes anymore. I'm out. So, with that said, we got an interesting show today. We are wholly focused on comics and comic books, not comic book movies, not comic book shows, comics and only comics.
Yep.
So if you don't like comics, we'll talk to you later. But if you do, you came to the place to be. So with that said, before we get started, you know what I gotta do. Gotta go through the whole rigmarole things you gotta do. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram at That One Pod. You want to email us? Email us at podthat@gmail.com. Find us on Pippa. Or any of the podcasting apps. And if you go there, you know what you're going to find? A Patreon. And why would you ever contribute to our Patreon? Listen how clear this audio is. Can you hear that?
Right?
Should say something sexy to him.
Something sexy.
Woo! Yeah.
Wait. Something sexy.
Oh, shiz. What was, our audio is so clear. You know what I heard just a second ago? Panties melting.
Oh, I thought I heard a drip.
Drip, drip, drip. Not to piss on you, sound like R. Kelly did. I fucked that up real bad. This is something completely different. It's a sexier drip. But with that said, we've got new mics, everybody. Yeah. Hopefully, you guys like the audio quality. Hopefully, it kicks up a little bit of a notch. And I want you guys to show we're serious about this. I know what you're going.
We
you
came to
niggas
play.
Did 30-some podcasts. I kind of figured you were serious. Well, now you know we're serious. So, donate any amount. Even if it's $1, I'll take it because I'm broke.
Right.
And this costs money.
We live in two of the most expensive cities in the country. We could use your help.
Yeah, exactly. With only $1 a day, you can feel an ashy-elbowed Negro.
Right.
And then they just show Shiz is looking like, why are you looking at me?
Damn.
So.
You could help 2 niggas get by.
You know how hard it is for a light-skinned brother to be ashy? You know how ashy you gotta be?
They gotta be
now,
real
the level
dry.
of ash, you can't moisturize shit. So, feel free to go and donate. If not, just spread the word. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell your family. As long as they're comfortable with the N-word, because we say nigga quite a bit in retrospect.
That said, we're very inclusive.
We are inclusive.
We like all people.
We are not gonna say any other derogatory terms because that's not our word. Like this.
Exactly.
So, again, go donate. I don't give a shit. It just will help. We'll appreciate you and we'll shout you out.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout out.
Matter of fact, we'll do this. We'll ask if you want us to shout you out because I got a feeling some of you are gonna be like, nah, I'm good. So, but you'll get the option. And you know what life is all about? The ability of having options. That's nothing better. That's freedom right there. So express your freedom. Donate. Shit. All right. So, Shiz.
Yes.
We already said this is gonna be a comic-centric show. But, as always, we always start off with the sad stuff.
True.
So, it's going to be comic-centric, but it's still sad. And the topic in question that makes us sad about comics, Brian Michael Bendis is leaving Marvel.
You know, honestly, I'm not sure if I'm sad about that.
Really?
Yeah, like I've always been on the fence about him. Like, because sometimes his writing just like it's too decompressed, and I feel like they gave him too much control. Like, and that's it. Like, I enjoy a lot of his work, but you know, it's like I said, I think they gave him a bit too much control over the whole Marvel universe, and so now, like, I get that he's got to move on. Like, he's done everything he's wanted to over like the past like decade
Yeah.
or almost like what decade and a half, or maybe two
Yeah.
decades, like that he's
I don't
had to
know
play with
anymore.
the Marvel universe. So, like, of course, at some point, any rational person would be like, you know, let me see what else I can do.
Here's the one thing I will say. I think Brian Michael Bendis is single-handedly responsible for the resurgence of a lot of Marvel characters,
I agree.
and possibly having such a large influence that we get a lot of the movies we even have today.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like, for one, he also created Jessica Jones. He's, you know,
Yep.
he's a big reason in why, like, she's popular. Why, like, Luke Cage is popular, and like, you know,
Yep.
he's pretty much single-handedly brought him back.
Yep.
Yeah, he was.
We got Miles Morales.
Exactly, he was a big factor in Ultimate Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, you know, a lot of the movie stuff is based on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the dude's definitely done a lot.
And I think I'd argue that there's not a single person who's been head of Marvel in any capacity, and you go, oh yeah, flawless. But at the same time, when you have someone in that position, and they are gonna have such a large influence, I feel like this is my thought with any position I take, especially a leadership position. I want things to be better going out than coming in. And I think they're definitely in a better spot going out than coming in.
Well, you know, yeah, that's true. But you make an interesting point. Like, he's not exactly in a leadership position. He's just like
No.
they let him, you know, write all their like flagship books, but he wasn't like, you know, like editor in chief. Like, that's another person. And so it's interesting that he decided to continue writing and just move on to DC versus like trying to climb up and become an editor. You know, like,
If I'm not mistaken though, I think at some point they actually tried to get him in a leadership position. He declined it. And
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you know, because they just changed editors like what, last year.
yeah. And I think it all came down to the fact that like he just wants to write, you know?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Now, with that said, it's not all sad for him because it's not like he's just going off into the sunset not doing shit. He's going to go work at DC, which, if I'm going to be honest, they desperately need.
Oh yeah, like, you know, I'm not a DC fan, but
Me neither.
I'm a Batman fan, and I'll read Batman every once in a while. But like, I might pick up his first Superman book. Like, I'm curious, and you know, he schmoozed a little bit in the like. Which, let me talk about this, because this is another reason why I don't like him, because he's from Cleveland, which, you know, we are from as well. And there's like interviews with him in the past where he talks about, you know, why he left Cleveland. He's all shitting on his like Cleveland had no culture, blah blah blah.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, he's like talk shit on Cleveland, and then, you know, and that's another thing. Like, he had this kind of persona, and I don't pay attention to him enough anymore to see, but he's kind of like this like holier than thou like thing. And I've talked to a couple people who knew him back in the day, and they're like, yeah, he was kind of an asshole. And so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But like, he like in an interview talking about why he switched to, like, his decision to switch to DC was like, you guys may or may not also know that I used to work at Cleveland Public Library. Last year they had a Superman exhibit because Superman was created in Cleveland.
This is true. Straight facts.
Right? So at some point, for some reason, he was back in Cleveland, and his like brother or somebody was like, "Hey, you should go check out the Superman exhibit," you know. And he had an epiphany while he was at the exhibit, like, I should write Superman, you know, like,
Yeah.
Blah, 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 whatever. So he claims that that's the reason, but it also kind of, like, when you read the article, kind of sounds like schmoozing, like, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But either way, like, I'm curious enough that, like, I'll check it out. But I also think, like, he's at that point where Cleveland metaphors. It's like, I was going to compare him to LeBron, but it's like, because LeBron, everyone's speculating that LeBron is going to leave, and dude has the choice of wherever he wants to go. It's like the same idea, like, and at that point, but in comics, like, why would you not write? You got to write Superman because it's Superman, you know?
Yeah, and and there is something to be said about this. If you want to be considered one of the greats, you have to get your hand in the pot of the iconic characters in comics, and he got to do that on the Marvel side for sure. And if you get to do it on Marvel and DC, that's not something a lot of people get an opportunity to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm not mad at him. I think if anything, this is good for everyone who likes comics, because this will hopefully help push the boundaries a little bit further so that people stop being comfortable. Because that's, I think, one of the things that he did very well was get people to stop being comfortable. The fact that essentially all of the Avengers got swapped out with a younger, more ethnic version of themselves, essentially. Mm-hmm. It goes a long way, because in comics, people tend to be old fuddy-duddies, and they go, well, this is how it always should be. I mean, God, we've seen how it's been just having a fucking Muslim girl be
Ms. Marvel.
Be Ms. Marvel, you know? But, and I remember when they announced Miles Morales, people lost their shit.
Oh, yeah, people flipped out.
You would have thought that fucking... they made him a Nazi or something. Like, you sitting here like
they did to Captain America.
They did do that to Captain
America. Nobody fucking cared.
No. Because they're like, oh, he's a white guy, it's possible. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's just one of those things where, like, and I remember hearing him sort of talk about coming to that realization that that's what he wanted to do, and it's just. You said, I mean, you've said it. You and Pedro both said, representation is important. And he said, like, he remember either his daughter or son, I can't remember, his kid basically going, I wish I could see a superhero like me. And
well, that's why he created Riri. Yeah. But yeah, because he has an adopted black daughter, and he wanted her to be represented in comics, which is cool. Like, I get it. It's just like, I think I may have talked about this on the show before. Like, I hate her origin story. It's offensive to me.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing. Like, okay, so she's like an underage genius. She's like 15 years old, but she's a super genius, and she's like, tinkers in her garage. That's all great. But then the fact that she is spurred to become a superhero because her dad gets killed in a drive-by shooting while they're having a cookout at the park is super fucking stereotypical, and that's like fucking bullshit. I don't care if that's shit that we do in real life. Like, come up with something different. That's like not like, what's the thing black people do? Oh, they have cookouts in the park all the time. Yeah. And sometimes they do drive-bys, and you put those things together, and that would make someone want to be a superhero.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that. Like, we do normal shit. Like,
this is true. But we like a nice cookout, to be fair.
I mean, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, you
truth.
You told me, look, I'm throwing some ribs on the grill. I'm coming over. So,
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, I went to the park this weekend, and there were so many cookouts that I then went to a barbecue restaurant after I went to the park to get some ribs because I didn't know nobody at the park that I could just walk up to.
Just to make the universe be equal again. You're like, nah, I gotta do this. No, and yeah, I totally agree. But this goes back to my statement where we need to get to a point where we stop being so comfortable with well, this is just how we have to do it, and why couldn't she come from a rich family, or a family that has, or like a middle class family that just like her parents are struggling, so she's like, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna just be a genius and be good at shit, you know? Like,
Right?
it's
Right.
and that's what it all comes down to is we got to get out of these. Some tropes are okay, right? There's some
Yeah.
tropes that you just go, you know what? If this ain't it, it don't feel right, you know? Like Captain America, when not in Nazi form, has to be a goody goody. He can't walk that line because to him, that line is much, much larger than any of us give it credit. But for like shit like that, where it's just lazy and it's people don't find inspiration in that story, you know?
Yeah, it's but you have like your like fans who hate change, and you know, like anytime you do, like you said, people flip their shit anytime there's like a big change.
Yeah.
And they're like, why can't it just stay the same? And like a good example is you had mentioned it earlier, the whole like Galactus thing.
Oh yeah,
Like,
this is off stream.
yeah, sorry. But anyways, essentially Galactus, like what was it, 3 years ago now? Like, so we all know Galactus, the world eater, has a constant hunger. He has his heralds who go and find a planet for him to eat.
The motherfucker can eat.
Exactly. And every time he comes to Earth, like the Fantastic Four, the Avengers defeat him, blah blah blah. And so like 3 years ago, I think the Ultimates, led by like the Blue Marvel and Black Panther and all that, like they helped Galactus evolve so that he became Galactus the Lifebringer instead of Galactus the World Eater. And so he, was going around like creating planets and shit, and it was like a big like status quo changer. It was really interesting. Yeah. After like he's been the World Eater since the '60s,
Mm-hmm.
And then of course like a month ago or something, some bullshit happened, and of course what happens? He's back to being Galactus the World Eater,
Yeah.
right? Because God forbid you change the status quo in comic books and do something interesting. Like, well, I mean, granted, the story, like from what I read,
it's just like
it was an interesting like, story and sacrifice that like a choice he had to make to like prevent Ultron from like taking over the universe or some shit. But still, and of course, that's lead into Marvel's next huge fucking crossover event. But whatever.
Well, that's what happens, right? So, I think again, this all comes down to one fact, and that's. People just want a story that's interesting, mm-hmm. and if you keep doing the same shit, it stops being interesting. That's why the original Iron Man comic failed. Because after a while, you're like, how often do I want to see this dude be drunk and beat his wife?
Yeah, right. You got to tell interesting stories, but which I don't understand because I feel like sometimes like the writers are trying that, and then the audience is like, no, like I want more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But. That's because,
but here's the thing. As we've learned, more often than not, the audience doesn't know what they want. They know what they're comfortable with, but they don't know what they want. There's a reason why, like, Black Panther got so much fucking money in the movie theaters. There was no movie like that. So if they would have just kept making movies like they had been, Marvel and Disney would have missed out on $1 billion, like $1 billion with a B. So like and they didn't really spend that much money into that movie, all things considered, right?
Right.
So to get your money, your investment, hand over fist, it says something. Maybe you should take a risk and do something different for once. So we'll see if he's able to implement that sort of change within the DC culture. Because if there's one thing we know, DC, they like everything staying the same. And they keep changing it, but it changes to a different version of what they're already doing, which just confuses people, and they go, why are you doing this?
Like there is it's funny you say that because there is a rumor that they're going to reboot their universe again.
How many times will that be in the past 5 years?
It'll be like at least the third.
That's
if not the fourth.
It might be 10 years that they've done it twice, but I think it might be literally 5 years that they've not had two different universes in 5 years, but literally they've rebooted it. So the universe was one way, they changed it. The universe was that way, they changed it again, twice. if you are fucking up that bad, you need to just stop doing it. Stop. You need to do something completely different. Don't make Superman evil. Okay, that's not how you get out of this. Don't make Batman even more ornery. We already had that. Don't make fucking Wonder Woman hate or like them more than she already has.
Right?
Like,
yeah, they don't need to be in a sexual relationship. Like we don't need that.
Let Wonder Woman be single as shit. Okay, let her live her life and be her best self.
Right.
Like she don't like the whole point of Wonder Woman is she doesn't need a man, and you're just sitting there going, but what about Batman? She likes him a lot.
Right? Like I don't understand. Like there's that whole like Batman and Catwoman are supposed to be getting married, right? And then of course somebody had to write a story where like Wonder Woman's like, hey, but we're perfect together. It's like so. Fuck Catwoman, like be with me.
I'm actually fine with him marrying Catwoman. Leave Wonder Woman alone. Leave Wonder Woman alone. I want to do like
she doesn't deserve this.
Leave Britney alone. Yeah, it's just I even if he doesn't get to have the influence that he had in Marvel, at least one time I want him to have the influence. He goes, "Are you guys sure? Like, are you sure you want to do that?"
Yeah, I'm curious because like his whole thing at Marvel was like, you know, bringing in like his favorite characters who might have like not been used in a long while or may have been a bit more obscure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you know, like Luke Cage and Iron Fist. You know, he like brought them back into the limelight after like years of being like C or D list characters. So, but I feel like in DC, you've already had a lot of people try to do that. Like, you had Grant Morrison do all kinds of zany shit because that dude, like, loves history and continuity and just being fucking weird. I love him for it, but it doesn't... It flops more often than it works, you know?
This is true.
So I'm, like, real curious of, like, what kind of stories Brian Michael Bendis is going to tell in the DC universe, but I guess we just have to wait and see.
Yep. So that was a lot of, our bad was actually pretty good in retrospect. So
yeah, look at us being like hopeful and shit.
Oh, that won't last for long. All right, so do we want to talk about Vertigo?
We could talk about it a little bit. I know you're not too familiar with Vertigo.
Nope.
And I mean, so like essentially it was like DC's like indie creator-owned line. So you've probably read some stuff like from them, like Sandman and
I know
like more mature. Yeah,
I know of Vertigo, but I'm not all that versed in that world, unfortunately.
So I mean, I think this just as long as you understand like the idea behind it is like the more mature like creator-owned works, and it was like the whole thing with it was like I can't remember the editor's name, but she was really good at just like curating like really interesting like creators and stories. So like they were always pumping out like stuff worth reading, like fucking Watchmen, like things like that.
And wasn't one of the big things that Vertigo was trying to do was gear comics more towards more adult themes.
Yeah, like more adult themes, more mature stories.
Gotcha.
And but I think like a few years ago, like I can't remember if she stepped down or if DC just like pulled the plug, or it was like a combination of the two.
I think they pulled the plug, if I'm not mistaken, for like sales or something. I can't. Exactly recall.
But yeah, now I guess they're rebooting it. But honestly, none of these new titles sound interesting to me. Did you look at the list of titles?
No, I didn't really. Because, I didn't, again, not being well-versed, I didn't know if these were brand new or if these are reboots or revamps of existing material. So
they're all new titles.
Okay.
But it just, going with what I just told you, like the basic idea of Vertigo, and like we said, they're supposed to be more mature, more adult. Yeah. Like, these titles all sound like very on the nose, like they're trying too hard to tell like mature stories. Yeah, like there's one just like a story. It's called Border Town, and guess what? It takes place on the U.S.-Mexico border.
What? That would never happen.
Right. There's one called Hex Wives about like a coven of witches that have been brainwashed to become subservient housewives. Like feminist witch story. The women have to rise up and shake off the patriarchy. Like it's just all too like fucking
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
There's one about an FBI agent who can pass as white. He's of mixed race, but can pass as white to infiltrate a white gang. Like come up, like be more creative. Like this stuff is just also like fucking simple. Like, and I get like we could be pleasantly surprised, but none of them like are drawing me in. Like there was one that kind of sounded interesting that even though I hate this fucking title, it's called Goddess Mode.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that kind of sounds interesting. And also going back to something that was off the show we were talking about, Sword Art Online. This show or this comic is kind of like Sword Art Online, where you like you're in a cyber world, but apparently this cyber world has like only women can have superpowers or something, and they're fighting to quote save the cheat codes to reality from being stolen by horrific monsters. Like that one could be fun.
What the fuck does that even? Okay.
I don't even know. And those are just like the first titles that are coming out this year. Then in next year, there's some more stuff that sounds even more on the nose. Like there's one called Second Coming, which is like Jesus comes back and like interacts with a superhero and tries to understand how his message is being twisted in today's world.
So that won't offend anybody.
Exactly.
And it's going to sell all the copies of everything. So
yeah.
Okay, well.
And there's two more, which are let's see. There's Safe Sex, which is a dystopian thriller set in a future where the government regulates and controls sexual pleasure.
So China,
right? But there's an underground resistance led by sex workers. That comic won't last long.
Nope.
And High Level, a post-apocalyptic story about a smuggler tasked with bringing a supposed child messiah to the mysterious mythical city of High Level, which is a story we've heard many a time before. Mm-hmm. So, none of those sound...
Isn't that just a different version of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, pretty much. Or any other, like, fantasy story.
Yeah. Okay, well...
Or you have to get to the savior, the chosen one, get this thing to this place.
Yeah. Good luck, Vertigo. Sounds like you're gonna need it.
Right. I feel this is like having just read the descriptions and not read any of the books. I will say, try harder. Like,
I think they did actually. I will say this: listen to Brian Michael Bendis, at least on one of these, because I got a feeling that you're gonna need some extra help.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like, if you think about it, like, all right, like Sandman was one of Vertigo's big titles that everyone still loves to this day, and like that's like a way more out there concept than any of those books that I just read.
Yes, it is.
Like, and like, why can't they like find something like that or try something like that? Like, it sounds like they're still playing it very safe.
Yeah, or they're trying to like be like edgy, and like edgy doesn't work in comics because you get exposed with that shit for real like very quickly. Either you like have a story you're telling that's legit, or you're basically just posing, and
yeah. Well, they tried to be edgy last year or 2 years ago when they gave what's his name, Gerard Way, his own imprint, Young Animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to be edgy with that, and like, what happened with that? They're folding that. It's been 2 years, and they're like, well, that experiment is over, and now they're like bringing back Vertigo.
Do better. That's
yeah, but that's like consistently DC's problem.
Yeah, but it isn't just their issue with their independence, which is normally your independence is when you do the off the wall shit. The independent. Yeah. Is where you try something that you never would do in 1,000 years. They're just doing what they would always do, just with like writers that they don't have to pay as much.
Mm-hmm. Because they're like, if your book doesn't sell, too bad. It's creator owned. It's your fault.
Exactly. But look at you broke motherfucker. We still skimmed our 20%.
Yeah, you tried. Better luck elsewhere.
Good luck. Now. Let's talk about something that is interesting when it comes to mixing it up. When did they announce this? Was this announced today, Shiz?
I think it happened. Like, was announced this afternoon, and it's
it might have literally been this afternoon, But essentially, Marvel has announced, and it's just like going to be a comic. Like it's so
that's
much.
the thing. They're just teasing it, so like nobody knows yet like what exactly it's going to be.
I am interested as shit, so I'll just get into it. Long story short, Marvel released a few designs that they came up with in house that essentially is a crossover, or not even a crossover, a merging of superheroes to form a brand new original superhero. And I actually find them to be pretty interesting. We'll go over one by one and sort of talk about it. And what I'll do is I want to see if I can find the. Was this? Do you know if this was posted on Twitter?
Yeah, it was done on Twitter.
Okay, yeah. We'll repost to Twitter so you guys can take a look at this and sort of gauge, in your own opinion, what you think. So, here are, what are there, 5? I think there's 5 or 6.
Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 of them, but yeah.
Various superheroes. So, the first one we'll just get into, we have what they're calling Arachnite.
Arachnite.
Arachnite. I'm sorry, yeah. Arachnite. Arachnite is a merging of both Spider-Man and Moon Knight.
Yeah. And the design looks really cool.
It does look cool. Can I just say this? I never got into Moon Knight. Not because I didn't like it, but like I never really had an opportunity to start reading it. And I'm not very and I as long as what I think a lot of listeners will be, am very unfamiliar with Moon Knight. I think I've heard you talk about Moon Knight before. Do you have any like information on like that character as a whole?
Like, I haven't read a lot of Moon Knight. Like my old boss loved the character, and so like that kind of got me into it a bit more. But like I really like the concept, and the way I sell it to people is like, imagine Batman, but if he were schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And like that's like, so he's trying his best to be a superhero, but he's also fucking nuts, and like, you know, hallucinating and, you know, like talking to people who aren't there, like imagining that he's in a completely different world, or that like there's been a couple series recently, like the more recent one, like he couldn't tell if he was like trapped in an insane asylum or in like a crazy world run by demons. The one before that, I think he was hallucinating that like Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Captain America were like his best friends, but you know, it was all in his head, and like just stuff like that. But he's like also, you know, trying to be a superhero.
Yeah,
and he's like a cooler version of Batman based on the moon instead of bats.
I'm down with that. Mm-hmm. At least sounds way more interesting. I can say that much. So.
Yeah, and it's like the moon and like Egyptian mythology.
Yeah. Oh, that's
kind
cool.
of plays into it. Yeah.
The next pairing they have, and this one I got a few thoughts on. They have Iron Man and Thor.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the suit just looks like another version of an Iron Man suit. I don't see the Thor influence in this at all.
Yeah, it just looks like top heavy. Like,
yeah.
Kind of like he might be wearing like the chest plate kind of looks like Thor's chest plate.
This looks like Gaines' Iron Man. It just looks like he just spent extra time. He looks like he spent a little bit too much time doing chest day.
And skip leg day, yeah.
Instead of leg day. Because he got those real, like, kind of tiny legs. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just...
And also the name on this one was lazy.
Yeah, like, Ironhammer. Get out of here. Get out.
Could have tried harder.
Now, the next one, definitely. You got Ghost Panther, which is Ghost Rider and Black Panther.
Actually, you know, all the names are lazy, but I want to let that slide just because I think they're trying to be obvious about it.
Yeah, I this one, like, you have to be obvious about this one, right? Mm-hmm. Oh my god, I like this design so much. So
yeah, it is cool.
For those of you who aren't going to go to Twitter, imagine, first of all, everybody knows Ghost Rider has to ride something. What does Ghost Panther ride? A fucking Fire Panther.
Yeah, fucking flaming panther.
Yes. Yes, 1,000 times. Yes.
A giant flaming panther.
And when we say giant, like, this motherfucker goes up to your chest. Giant. Okay, like, huge. And he looks like if you mixed in some leather with vibranium and you just gave him the fire head that looks like a panther head, like he got
Yeah, I will
fangs and
say I
shit.
like that touch that he has the fangs.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a skull. He's got those panther fangs.
I'm digging that the most, and that needs to be in a comic series today. All right. Next, Weapon Hex.
Yeah.
So it looks like they mix X-23
And Scarlet Witch.
and Scarlet Witch, and it looks like they just needed a reason to make X-23 sexy.
Well, she looks like Elektra.
And also, too, sexier than fucking Scarlet Witch looks, by the way.
Well, it honestly just looks like she's wearing one of Elektra's old costumes.
It does.
Like
she found it in the closet, like, I'm down.
Yeah.
Ooh, and I know magic spells.
Exactly.
Here's the other thing. Those combinations of superheroes, you can justify and see, like, okay, that would be an interesting combination of ability. What would Scarlet Witch need with with Wolverine like abilities, and what would X-23 need with Scarlet Witch like abilities? This doesn't make sense. This just seems like they literally forced, like they're like, you can't really merge her with fucking Black Widow because she didn't have powers, so she'll just have bigger boobs. I don't know. So like they're like, we'll do X-23 and Scarlet Witch and make. Look. You could have done fucking Captain Marvel. You could have done Storm. Like, and I get they're probably trying to do Avengers, but like, X-23? Hello?
Yeah, I don't. I feel like that was one that they came up with the name first, and they're just like, yeah, I like that name.
And
Weapon Hex.
They're like, I don't like this anymore.
Yeah.
Now the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even why. Just why.
Okay, here it is. The name of the character is Soldier Supreme, which, by the way, sounds like the name of like a superhero you'd hear in a Pixar movie that like one of the kids likes. Like, oh, you got the new Soldier Supreme action figure. And this looks like fucking Doctor Strange went real patriotic. With no shield. Like, first of all, if there's no shield, I don't give a fuck, right? This is just weird. Like, I don't know how I feel about this one.
Captain America, Doctor Strange, but it just looks like Captain America with a bunch of rags on him
No, it looks like hobo Captain America.
Yeah, he just wrapped a tunic around his Captain America outfit. Like,
it's not great.
And he's got the old school Captain America boots with like the pirate boots.
Yeah, it's not great. And here's the thing. I get it. It's hard to show Captain America mixed with another hero. I'd rather you show fucking Doctor Strange with a shield or something, right? Like, this is
right.
Like, I know we don't want to be too on the nose. Motherfucker, be on the nose, okay? Because this don't look good.
That could have just been a magic artifact. He had a magic shield,
Yeah, that looked like a Captain America shield. Like,
yeah. But had a pentagram on it or some shit. I don't know.
And now what do we get? You wasting shit. So.
Yeah, but what do we know?
Nothing apparently. So.
Yeah, that's why we're paying to read these and not writing them.
For now.
Speaking of paying to read things, and talking about one of my favorite characters, let's continue talking about Black Panther because. This is actually out now, and I haven't gotten it yet because I actually haven't had time to go to the comic book store.
Same here. I think I might try to go this weekend. I haven't been I've been trying to get back into comics, and
the funny thing is, I went last time, and I just have them stacked up, and I've been yelled at on numerous occasions.
Yeah, I'm trying not to do that. So
she just yelled so much. She's
I'm trying to avoid that same thing. Trust me.
And so judgy about it too. Like, you don't have to be so judgy, but whatever. There is
women. Am I right?
Am I right? Hello.
Hey.
Hey, remember being single? And we're back. So, basically, for those of you who don't know, T'Challa yes, he's the king of Wakanda, but like, you know, like they've had falling out and shit with people and whatnot, and you know, he kind of got kicked out of his own country because he fucked up, and so like he just is sort of like freelancing it a little bit, you know, and well, Marvel, you know, they obviously don't want to let the golden goose die. You can't be the king of no Wakanda because like he's Black Panther. He made $1 billion, so they gotta make it count. So if he can't be king of Wakanda on Earth, let's make him king of space Wakanda.
Why not? I mean, it's like an interesting idea.
It is a very interesting idea because now you can see, and I haven't read it yet, and that's not, the story isn't as straightforward as I'm making it sound, but at the same time, as a concept, I'm down. Like,
yeah, man, me too.
Like sometimes you hear a concept, you go, I'd rather not. Like women who are tricked into being subservient and slaves, but they're witches. Whatever that comic was we were talking about earlier, that was trash. Like that one I'm listening to, I'm like, no, I don't think I need that. This, nope, Marvin needs it and then some.
Yeah, like, did you read like the kind of the premise? It actually sounds pretty interesting. Like,
yeah,
like they have, I guess it's somewhere in the indeterminate future, but like a section of like Wakanda decides to like go into space, and it's like it sounds interesting just because it's about like how the culture develops. Like they go to a planet, they set up, and then how Wakanda on Earth was like closed off, but then decided to open up to the world. Like the opposite is happening in space now. Like I guess there's like a whole like culture and pride, and they're becoming like real isolationists. And
yeah,
but it's like, so then you might, I can't remember, I read this a while ago, but like I think you might end up having like the traditional like Wakanda idea versus like the new space Wakanda.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I don't know, it sounds like it could be pretty interesting, like just from that alone.
Again, going back to what we were referencing earlier, it sounds different enough that it'll be intriguing to listen to, but at the same time, not like it's so far off the rails that you feel like they're just pulling shit out of their ass. And I think that there's a lot of meat on the bones for a story.
Oh, definitely. And plus, I've just been like really wanting Marvel to get back like and like make their space and like cosmic stuff more mainstream again.
Well, they're gonna have to.
Yeah, I feel like they try every couple years and like it doesn't quite catch, and then they like kind of give up on it. But now, like especially with like Guardians being as popular as they are, like there's so many more space characters that they could bring into the fold. And with like Thanos being big in the movies.
Yeah, well, they're gonna have to, because if they don't, then what's gonna end up happening is they are going to not capitalize on Captain Marvel when the movie comes out. So.
Oh yeah, good point.
That's one thing Marvel is smart at, is utilizing their comics like they should. Before, the movies were meant to make the comics popular. Now they go, oh wait, there are people who will never read these, but will go see the movies. Let's do the opposite. Just like how anime is and still is meant to be a platform to sell toys and manga. But now there are some companies that are realizing, oh wait, I can make more money if I do the opposite. So it's exciting for me, and I know that's a comic that I'm absolutely going to get when I go to the comic book store. I just have to figure out a way to not feel like I'm going to be murdered when I come home with $100 worth of comics.
Oof. Yeah, don't do that.
But I'm going to do it. So I just accept it. I'm going to do it. And I deal with the consequences as they come. So there you go. All right.
Yeah, I last time I went to the comic book store, I was like just buying trades, and like I'm like, all right, I hit the $40 mark. It's time to stop. And like I had asked the sales girl for recommendations, and she was going to keep going to keep making that money, And I'm like, I'll come back next week.
She ain't worried about your checkbook, baby. As long as the money pays.
Exactly.
She goes, I got recommendations all day.
Yeah, exactly.
And she probably would have been right.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's why I had to stop her. I'm like, I'm good. I got 2 books here, and I picked up like a single issue of something else that I was like, this is all I need to spend today.
Yeah. Look at you being a responsible adult.
It wasn't easy.
Some of us don't have the patience or the chutzpah to do so. Sometimes I just need to be weak and get what I want and just deal with it. So there you go. All right. So that was it for Black Panther. Speaking of going in a new direction, the Avengers got some interesting things going on with their West Coast Avenger lineup, it looks like.
Yeah, this is actually interesting. Especially speaking of like what you were talking about with like younger versions of a lot of the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're rebooting the West Coast Avenger. I feel like you might know more about this one than I do, though. So
I know a little bit, not necessarily that much. But here's the thing: a while back, we sort of talked about how Marvel announced that they were canceling a lot of their runs of some of those newer revamped comics that we had mentioned. So some of these were ones that people actually liked quite a bit.
yeah, all the ones that like new representation and like younger heroes, or, people of color and women and LGBTQ.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it sort of threw some people for a loop. Some of them were pretty self-explanatory. You're like, oh yeah, nobody's buying this. But there are some that like people were like the new Hawkeye. It was actually doing pretty decent numbers last I had heard. And so it's pretty confusing because people are like, why are you canceling this? But, Marvel do what Marvel do.
I don't know. Especially because like all those books are getting canceled, and they were all, to me at least, like interesting characters. Like, Kate, the Hawkeye, she had been around for a while, and she is all but established and finally has her own book, and it was actually pretty good. Then what? America Chavez, like great character, and like once again finally has her own book, and Gwenpool, who like at first I thought I would hate, and then like once I understood what the character was, like was on board. Like, are you familiar with Gwenpool?
Gwenpool was one of those characters where like I didn't even bother learning about, not because I was like I'm gonna hate this, but because I was like I have too much to commit to. Because I went Spider-Gwen, which I think was the wrong direction to go when it came to my Gwens.
Well, see, okay, so that's the thing. That was the problem. Like, they confused people with that. Like, Spider-Gwen was fun. Like, I didn't mind Spider-Gwen, but Gwenpool was like at the height of like they're like bringing back Gwen Stacy from the dead and like all these ways, and then it's like the height of Deadpool popularity because his movie had come out and everything, and so they had done these like all those like variant covers where like it was Gwen Stacy as like every Marvel character, and Gwenpool was one of them, and like that's where like Spider-Gwen came from, like Spider-Verse, all that shit.
Yeah, that I remember.
Yeah, but it turns out that like Gwenpool is related to neither of those characters. Which once I found that out, I was like, oh, okay. So what is this character about? And her character is actually, she is a girl whose name is Gwenpool, who is from, the essentially our universe and got sucked into the Marvel universe, and so she knows everything because she read all the comic books.
Oh.
Exactly. It's fucking hilarious, right?
Okay.
And yeah, so she just deals with that, and also being sucked into a comic book universe is also like kind of driven her crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the book. And it was like, I read it for a little bit, and it was actually really fun. But like that concept, once again, is also fun.
It justifies the Deadpool fourth wall breaking for sure. Because she's like, oh, I know you're reading this right now, so that's cool.
Yeah. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and again, these are like interesting characters that people were sort of miffed about. They're like, okay, what are you doing? Well, Marvel's like, well, you know what? Let's actually just forget about it and let's make one super duper comic and make them into the West Coast Avengers. So the West Coast Avengers, again, consists of America Chavez, Kate Bishop, who is... Technically, she's new Hawkeye, right?
Yeah, just Hawkeye. Because she didn't want to change her code name.
Yeah, she's like, no, I'm not doing that. And I get it. Her boyfriend, Johnny, Quentin Quire from X-Men fame, and Gwenpool, who we were just referencing here. So it's an interesting group for sure. It's definitely like a bunch that you wouldn't probably put together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At least not inherently. Like if you said make your all-star list, you're not putting those fuckers together, right?
Exactly, but it seems like they would be an interesting team.
Exactly. It definitely seems like they would make an interesting team, and essentially, the OG Hawkeye, Clint Barton, is the leader of this ragtag.
Yeah, he's their adult.
Yeah, he's literally the adult that they need to behave. So it's basically like Young Avengers on the West Coast, but you still have Hawkeye there making sure that everybody eats their vegetables and goes to bed and all that shit. You know what I mean? So it's I'm very interested to see how this goes, because it can either be like one of the best things out there, or it could be hot trash and unreadable.
Yeah. I'm also interested because I feel like the West Coast Marvel books never catch on.
Yeah.
Runaways was great. I hope the West Coast Avengers encounter the Runaways. I don't know where any of them are right now.
Yeah.
The original West Coast Avengers, whatever.
Who was in? Do you remember the original West Coast Avengers? Because
it was Hawkeye, War Machine, one of the different Spider Women.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Jessica Drew. I think it was a different one.
No, I don't think it was her either.
Wonder Man, I think. I don't fucking know. Bunch of characters that especially back in the day, I did not care about.
Mm-hmm.
But then let's see. There was that time the X-Men moved to San Francisco.
Yeah.
There was The Order, which I thought was a really good book, and that spun out of the Initiative, but that only lasted 10 issues. But it was a clever idea. It was they gave normal people superpowers, and the guy who led the team. It was right after the Iron Man movie came out, and so the guy who led the team was the guy who played Tony Stark in the movie in the Marvel Universe. Yeah. But it was a really good book, and you follow him actually learning what it means to be a superhero and shit like that, and leading the team. But yeah, I feel like West Coast Marvel books never last too long, so we'll see.
But I think it's a necessity, because we get so caught up being in New York in the comics that often they'd justify being out in weird places, like in Connecticut or something, right? Nobody in New York even wants to be in fucking Connecticut. So, look, I'm sorry to anybody who's listening who's from Connecticut. I'm not saying your place is not someplace you want to be. All I'm using this is that as a reference to make my point. Anywho, it makes sense that eventually somebody's going to go, look, there are way too many heroes out here, and there's a lot of shit happening in other places. We probably should go there to help out too.
Right? Well, that was the funny thing about the Initiative, where do you remember the 50-state initiative where every state had a superhero team?
Yes, I do.
I liked that idea. I should have stuck with that.
It wasn't bad. Not in my opinion, it wasn't bad. But but I get it. It's one of those things where it's okay, so we can only do so much, and we want to use some of the people we got, because that was actually part of the problem too. Is now you got 50 fucking superheroes.
No, that's the thing. There's a shit ton of superheroes in the Marvel universe. They were just utilizing all of them for once, instead of just forgetting about some of them and saying they're minding their business right now, or trying to live a normal life or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, of course they created new characters, but whatever.
Yeah, and I honestly think that this is one of those things that, if they do it right, they could really turn it into something that people will appreciate, and maybe even spin off in the Marvel movieverse, because they like to do that shit. So
yeah, I definitely think it could work, because so a few years ago you had, we were talking about earlier, all the younger versions, they kind of took over the Avengers team, but they're then they left the Avengers and became the champions. Yep. And then I think, I don't know, did the champions disband? I haven't been keeping up.
I I don't remember. I think they did disband, or they got theirs infighting or something, because as with most groups like that, there's arguments over who was the true leader of the group, and
Yeah, yeah.
power struggles and all that shit. So,
But then didn't like half of those characters already like I know the new Nova, he was like from fucking Arizona. Like why is he
Yeah.
not on the West Coast Avengers, you know?
yeah.
So maybe they're like he'll join later, cuz I feel like they could, if it works, they could have them like they could have more of the young characters like come and join up.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, again, I think there's a lot of meat on the bones there. I keep using that phrase, but you know what? You just gotta deal with it. But I think there's a lot of potential that this could have, where like this could lighten things up a little bit, to say the least, but also to make it so that you still keep it interesting. And look, if you're buying into Marvel comics, you're not in there for realism or anything, but you still want to have it be like a story that's so believable that you can still be drawn into it and feel like you're not being, trying to just have the wool pulled over your eyes and just told, oh, believe this is really realistic. You're like, I don't think so. Because there's sometimes that happens when I'm like there are odd pairings that just work. Like Deadpool and Spider-Man, right? I go, I get it. These two, like you get two comic relief characters together, they're gonna eventually like just hang out a little bit too much, Same thing like with Spider-Man and Human Torch. Like I was like, eventually Human Torch is gonna lose his shit dealing with that group. He's gonna want to hang out with somebody fun, and Spider-Man got nothing to do, so he'll hang out.
Yeah, they're best friends, and it works fantastically.
Oh, I see what you did there. I mean,
Thank you.
You could have said exceptionally, but you chose not to, and I like that. But it's just one of those things where you're just like, I wanted to see something different. I want to see what you can do, and I want to make sure that this isn't gonna be just, oh, let me piss on you and call it rain. Like make it something that actually is entertaining, and make it something that like will get me excited. And it's not hard to do, in my opinion. I think it's very easy. I think it's just very understated that you should be doing it. A lot of times they just go, oh no, you just like it, and or accept it. That's because I think that's what fans get upset with the most, is just being told they have to accept something, But I'm okay with that if you're doing something useful with that control. Like, if you don't have me accept it, let me accept something that's fun at least, right? Like, there's nothing like accepting the fact that, I don't know, like accepting the fact that the Ultimate Universe is gone. I didn't like that shit. I thought it was bullshit. I actually enjoyed a lot of the shows, well, the storylines, I should say, that was going on in the Ultimate Universe, in the main Marvel Universe. And they did do a little bit of quality control there by having Ultimate people be in the normal universe and all that shit, but no, I make it fun. That's all I want. I want something fun to read. That's it.
Right? Like, just make it interesting. So, like, honestly, the one thing I was most upset about with the Ultimate Universe, like, especially once I found out they were bringing Miles to the normal universe, was that they had just started a really interesting story with Spider-Woman. And like, I thought that the way they had come up with the ultimate version of Spider-Woman was that she was a clone of Peter Parker, who had to deal with, one, being a woman and having Peter Parker's memories, and also dealing with the fact that Peter Parker was now dead and that Miles was around.
Yeah.
Like, that was really interesting to me. And then the Marvel Universe, or the Ultimate Universe, ended, and so she went poof.
Mm-hmm. And like that's a prime example of what I was referencing earlier, when I'm just like, man, we had something going here, because that actually was something I was really digging, and
Me too.
Like even what was going on with Ultimate Thor, like now they're mixing it into not only the movies but also the mainstream Marvel universe, and mixing elements in, and it actually brought Thor to the forefront, where you had this character that you had been doing the same thing over and over and over again, but then you go, oh wait, this is actually like a character that people should like. And they made Thor likable again, which I didn't think was ever going to happen because for the longest time it felt like Thor was just lost in the sauce and like
Oh yeah.
he was just there to be like he was to be a less interesting Hulk. But
Pretty much, yeah. He's just the muscle.
exactly. But like you already got a muscle guy. He literally is the strongest guy. So like you have to make him interesting in some other way. And I thought they did a really good job. But that's why Ultimate Universe was there, to sort of be like, look, we're just gonna try this. And some people absolutely hated it. Like there's some people who swear that Ultimate Universe is what's wrong with comics. And I'm going, yeah, you're what's wrong with comics because you don't see fun.
Well, admittedly, they did do some lazy stuff.
Oh, I mean, you're gonna have that. Look, you can't write an all original storyline for every single character in a universe that you already have pre-established. There are going to be things that, yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to be like, well, that was unnecessary. Oh, yeah, that wasn't creative. But, like, there are going to be just as many chances that you can take to go, oh, wait, that actually was pretty clever. Or, oh,
That's true.
I didn't think about doing it that way. So, yeah, I just think that I honestly just think that this could work in a way that we're not considering. And not even that we're not considering, but that in a way that we aren't expecting. And that's what I like. I like that potential. So I'll give it a chance. It comes out in August, end of August. August 22nd is when it's supposed to drop. God only knows what'll happen because you know what happens with those dates a lot of times. They tell you one thing and it ends up being something completely different. But I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to listen to it. Listen to it. Wow. I keep saying listen and watch, but like I'm going to read it because that like now it's so funny because like comics are in so many forms now that
yeah,
it's you could say it ubiquitously. Nope, that's not the word I want to use. I'm tired. You could say it, in so many forms and still be right. Which actually, we didn't talk about this. Did you hear that they were talking about doing a comic podcast?
Who?
Marvel.
No, I did not hear that.
So it's not going to be a podcast in a sense where they're talking about it. Like I think what the goal of this podcast is to literally tell a story like a comic book, but in podcast.
Oh yeah, that started already. It's this Wolverine story. It's called like The Long Night.
Yeah, The Long Night.
But it's only available on Stitcher Premium right now. I think it'll be wide release later this year, which is a little annoying, but.
Which I didn't know there was a Stitcher Premium.
Exactly. That is literally how I found out. Like I was actually moving here, and I was like, oh well, got a 7-hour drive ahead of me. Let me find something to listen to. They're like, oh cool, this Wolverine podcast. Then it's like, sign up for Stitcher Premium. That's the only way you can fucking listen.
I'm gonna be that guy, okay? And I think you know where I stand on this, but I don't think the audience does. So I'm just gonna come out and say it. I'm tired of fucking Wolverine.
Oh, I've been tired of Wolverine.
I think he is. I think it's overstated in his importance to the Marvel Universe. I think he's a lazy character. Not his background story, but how they use Wolverine. He's like the lovable grunt, and I just like. He's like this. They treat him like they treat Superman, where they just kill him off and bring him back, and that's supposed to be what revitalizes your stories. And frankly speaking, he just let him be dead. Like I'm fine with him being dead. I actually prefer he's dead because, frankly speaking, he's way more interesting dead than he is alive. And like, there's no. I just hate Wolverine so much. I don't get it.
Do you remember back? I mean, not even like too long ago, but like especially like late 90s, I feel like early 2000s, Wolverine was in like every X-Men and Avengers book.
Yeah. And I'm like, how can he have allegiances like that? Like he's not even Captain America don't have allegiances like that where he's literally when I knew I was done was when Wolverine started being the mediator instead of the instigator. I was like, oh no.
I checked. I was pissed at that too. Like I checked out when that shit happened. I was like, he would never. Like no, it's inappropriate.
There's certain he would defend somebody who didn't need defending, but he wouldn't try to be mediator about it, and that's what aggravated me. So if you like Wolverine, that's cool. But I feel the same. Like it's just, he's just the worst. He's just when I saw the last Wolverine movie that came out, that was referenced so many times in
Logan,
in
Deadpool.
In the new Deadpool. Yes, Logan. Like I was like, when I saw him die, everybody's like, oh, I'm okay. I'm happy with this. This is I didn't want him to die in the movie, but when he did, I was like, okay. I mean,
it worked. It was a good story.
Yeah, just let him stay dead.
Yeah.
Let him stay dead. Okay, he doesn't need to be alive. He's not that interesting. You can actually do much better without him. You tell much more engaging storylines without him. But when you use him as a crutch, it only hurts more than helps.
I haven't been keeping up because, we both come out of comics, but the stuff I've been hearing they've been doing with X-23 is really interesting. So, and they wouldn't have done that had Wolverine not died.
But that's girl Wolverine, and I don't like that. This is weird. I don't know how to feel about being attracted to somebody with sexy claws. I don't know what the deal is for those people, but then you get the fuck over it. This is just stop.
Yeah.
Stop it. All right. Well, I think that's as good of a jumping off point as any. So we might as well wind it down unless you got something you want to add.
No. I think this is a good place to call it an episode.
And that's what we will call it. So, couple things as always: Instagram, Twitter @thatonepod. Email us at pod@gmail.com. We got the Pippa. We got the Patreon. We got a Discord channel. I want to try to get these idiots to be on it more. Nobody's using it yet, but they will. You all will use it. It really is a good way to sort of keep the conversation going or become involved with our conversations even, because that's part of the thing. We want to engage with our community, however big or small it may be. Even if there's one person in there, that's enough for me to feel like we're getting some use out of it. So we're going to be putting that literally everywhere. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm going to start putting our episodes back on SoundCloud. We don't have the paid version of it, but we're going to put as many as SoundCloud lets us post up there. So it may be 2 episodes, it may be 3 episodes, but whatever we get, latest stuff is going to be there. But if you want to listen to everything, go to Pippa. Matter of fact, just you listen to podcasts somewhere else, go listen to it there. But in the meantime, thank you all for joining us this week. Shiz, as always, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
You know what? We missed you. And I think I heard people say they don't even like Pedro. So, but I don't want to bring that up. I'm not going to talk about it. So, because you know what we need to do, Shiz?
What's that?
And you know what they need to do too? Be nice to one another.
Yes, be kind.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Adios.